So today I wanted to do something really special, and that's ranking all the baddies from all Souls games, specifically the blade wielding ones. Now you might be wondering why the hell did I decide to do this, even though Women's History Month is far gone and that would have been the perfect time to make this. Look man, it's better late than never, I guess. And plus, we have some new additions from the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, so it was a good thing that I waited. Anyways, I'm gonna be ranking them based on quality to see which one is truly the best. Also, in order to be on the list, the bosses have to be humanoid women, specifically the ones wielding a blade. So for the small group of people that wanted to see Ebrietis on here, unfortunately she's not. I'm not king shaming or anything, like you do you, but she's not a baddie and she doesn't have a blade, so yeah. That aside, let's get to the ranking. At number 14 we have Elena the Scaled Queen. Genuinely one of the most horrendous bosses to ever exist. Okay, she's not that bad, but in terms of quality, she's not great either. First of all, she teleports a lot. Second of all, she can summon a bunch of enemies to fight you. The worst one being Velstad, who is literally a late game boss. And we all love to focus on multiple enemies during a boss fight, right? Yeah, said no one ever. She's also terrifying to look at, which, to be fair, I know some of y'all freaky asses would love that, but she's just not a great boss fight. At number 13, we have Mitha the Baneful Queen. Everything I said about Elena is how I feel about Mitha. She's a rather mid boss with an extremely bland arena. Her moveset is also super bland, as well as the only interesting move she has is when she throws her head at you. The poison in the arena can cause a bit of an annoyance as well, especially if you didn't get rid of most of it by burning the windmill. Overall, she's just a boring boss fight with barely anything going for it except for her awesome design and visuals. Next up we have Great Valley Quag, yet another Dark Souls 2 boss. Nashka literally tried to steal Quag's style and failed horribly, and you can tell based on her boss fight. Her moveset is very lackluster, the arena is mid, and while the fight can be a bit enjoyable at times, it's still rather boring. Nashandra. Nashandra's boss fight isn't as bad as how the community makes it out to be. Is it great? Hell no. But there's still something enjoyable about it. First of all, let's talk about Nashandra's design. It looks dope. This is one of the best death-like designs I've seen, behind Gravelord Nido of course. Now I know some of you might be saying, why is she on the list? She's clearly not a baddie. Oh, come on, like, are you sure? Because this is what she looks like in human form. Anyways, while I do enjoy her boss fight a little, her cursed orbs definitely makes it more annoying than it should be. All in all, Nashandra isn't too bad, but compared to all the other women on the list, she doesn't even compete with the ones I've yet to mention. At number 10 we have Priscilla. Now we have everyone's favorite dragon hybrid. Priscilla is definitely not one of my favorite bosses because I barely fight her on subsequent playthroughs. That's also because I find it hard to kill someone who isn't really bothering me. Now her boss fight itself is rather easy, as most of the time she just stands still while attacking you in one direction. The only somewhat difficult part about this encounter is when she goes invisible, but all you have to do is watch her footsteps in the snow to know where she's at. Priscilla is not a bad boss by any means. She only gets held back due to the slower pace of Dark Souls 1. At number 9 we have the Lost Sinner. The Lost Sinner is definitely one of the better boss encounters in Dark Souls 2. Now I'm not 100% sure if she's actually a woman or not. It could be a translation issue for all I know, but I'm just gonna go with it. The Lost Sinner fight is rather easy but can still be a bit tough at times. Now what makes it tough is her input reading. For some reason, every time I try to heal around her, she immediately dashes and stabs me with her sword. And let's not forget about the shitty hitboxes on some of her attacks. But apart from that, she's really fun and definitely one of the better melee focused bosses in Dark Souls 2. Quag gets extra points for being the original half arachnid, half human girl in Soulsborne history and inspiring the rest of them. Also, come on, ignoring the bottom part, she's bad as hell. The visual design of the arena looks great too. It's like you're fighting her in a spider's nest. But that aside, in terms of gameplay, I actually really like this fight. The lava can be a bit, annoying to deal with, but all of her other attacks are easy and fun to dodge. Emma the Gentle Blade. For such a small framed lady, Emma is strong as hell. I mean, she can pick you up and throw you around like a rag doll. Mechanically, Emma is probably the most addictive fight on the list, as her attacks are fun to deflect and counter. However, the only thing holding her back is the fact that she only has one phase, which, to be fair, makes sense because she's technically the first phase for Ishin Ashina. But if she was her own separate boss and she had a second and third phase, she could have been up there as one of the best Soulsborne bosses, and she could have also ranked way higher on this list. Now if we were going by looks only, she would have definitely be ranked at number 1 or number 2. The dancer makes for one of the best mid-game bosses in Souls history, and I really like the idea that you can challenge her pretty early on if you wanted to. Her boss fight itself is pretty great as she has the right balance of difficulty and fairness. For example, her attacks can hit like a truck, but they're fairly easy to dodge, and she also has a wide attack window. Speaking of attacks, her movesets and combat style looks really graceful, and it really gives off the idea that yes, she was really a dancer. Her design and appearance is also interesting. Overall, she's a great mid-game boss, and that's why she ranks at number 6. At number 5 we have Romina, Saint of the Bud, the newest edition of Quag clones, except that she's actually a decent boss fight compared to the previous one, Nashandra. Romina has a beautiful looking arena, her design is also very great, and her backstory is interesting. Apparently, during one of Mesmer's crusades, he burned her church to the ground, and because of this, she communicated with the outer god of rot and was granted powers. She also created a religion out of the rot and formed it into what it is now. Now, I don't think she literally created the rot itself, but it's more like she mended it. Or some shit like that. Look, I don't know. I'm not Vadi video, bro. Some people also pointed out on why she and Melenia looks completely different. They said that Melenia has a more refined version of the rot due to her being the vassal of the rot god itself, while Romina is only using the powers granted by it. But lore aside, the fight itself is great due to her beautiful attacks such as the exploding butterflies and her spinning attack. Overall, this is definitely one of the more underrated boss fights in Shadow of the Erdtree. At number 4 we have Freda. Freda is a great encounter, but to be honest, she's not really one of my favorite Dark Souls 3 bosses. The main reason being is that I feel like her fight goes on for way too long. While I understand the importance of the second phase, I think I would have enjoyed the fight without it. But I've talked about her boss fight many times before, so I'm gonna save you the yap sesh. You know, all the negative stuff aside, she's still a great boss quality wise. Her design is fantastic and her cutscene, especially the second one, is really cool. And let's not forget about the third phase. All in all, while she may not be my favorite boss from Dark Souls 3, I can at least appreciate the encounter for being good quality wise. At the number 3 spot we have Rana. I know a lot of people are gonna get pissed for me putting Rana over Freda. Well, in my opinion, Rana doesn't feel like an endurance test, especially if you fight her at the right Shadow Tree level, which is around 8 to 10. Some people may say that 10 is a bit overkill, but I think that's not true since she doesn't really take a crazy amount of damage even on this level. Now, her moveset, while cool looking, can be a bit of a pain to deal with at times, especially when it comes onto her combos that feels non-ending, while only giving you a small chance to attack. Pretty much the same as Freda, except the fight doesn't feel as long and drawn out. Another complaint that I have is that she doesn't have any cutscene, which is kinda nitpicky, but at least give her some dialogue to make her feel important. That aside, the arena looks nice and the visuals from her attacks in the second phase looks really incredible, especially her double moon attack, and overall she's just a great boss, and that's why I placed her at number 3. And for number 2, we have Melenia. I know this is another somewhat controversial pick, placing her at number 2 instead of someone like Freda, but hear me out. Apart from the waterfowl dance, which is still one of the worst attacks ever, she's a great boss. In her first phase, she's rather passive and gives you a lot of breathing room. Her attacks are super deadly as she can wipe out your health bar in 2 to 3 swings from her sword, but they aren't super hard to dodge. In her second phase, she's a bit more aggressive and she also likes the input read, which is definitely something I genuinely hate. I mean, it feels almost impossible to heal around her when she's not doing a punishable attack, but that aside, her visuals and the boss fight itself, apart from the waterfowl, is really great, and that's why I placed her this high on the list. And finally, at number 1, we have Lady Maria, who's definitely the best blade wielding baddie in a Souls game. I mean, come on, she looks fine as hell. Her boss fight is super challenging but also super fair too, because even though she moves around quickly, you as the hunter can do the same. In her second phase, she can now incorporate blood attacks that has a lot of range, and in her third phase, those said blood attacks is now engulfed in flames, dealing extra damage. Due to how cinematic Lady Maria feels, I had no choice but to place her this high. And yeah, she's just a great boss, come on. So yeah, those were my top picks for the best Soulsborne woman bosses in, Soulsborne history. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, just drop a like. If you didn't, that's okay. I'm not forcing you. And yeah, that's it.